Hi, Jerry Mona with Boater Input. No, if you've been a boater for any length of time, you know that sooner or later things are bound to go wrong, and you might even find yourself getting stuck on the water. Most of the time, it's just an inconvenience, but sometimes it could be pretty serious and maybe even a safety issue. So in today's video, I'm going to go over the most common reasons for boat failures based on a recent survey that I just conducted. And along the way, I'm going to share some of your experiences too to help give you a better idea of the kinds of things that could go wrong. Of course, the goal of this is to help you be better prepared for the unexpected. Now, we can't prevent all failures from happening, but we can take certain precautions to reduce the risk or reduce the odds of getting stranded on the water. So let's get into it.
Okay, so to get started, I'd like to take you through the survey results. And just to give you a little bit of context, I sent out invitations to the survey last November 2024, via my Boater Input monthly newsletter. And by the way, if you're not receiving my free monthly newsletter, you can sign up by clicking on the link in the video description. I had 107 boaters participate from across the U.S., representing a variety of different boat types, everything from small aluminum fishing boats all the way up to cruisers and large saltwater sport fishing boats. And one of the first questions I asked is whether you've ever had a breakdown or failure on your boat that might inhibit your ability to use your boat or greatly diminish your boating experience. And so as you can see from this pie chart here, the vast majority of boaters have had a significant failure, 86%. So this leads to my next question of when did your most recent failure occur? So in this chart, I show the timing of when their most recent failure. And so it goes, the blue line represents the percentage of people who said their most recent failure occurred at a specific point in time. So 21% said that their most recent failure occurred this year, 2024. An additional 31% said that their most recent failure occurred 1 to 2 years ago. Now, this green area here is the same information, just reported on a cumulative basis. And so as you can see here, 51% of boaters in my survey indicated that they had a significant breakdown or failure within the past 2 years. 75% have had a failure within the past 5 years on a cumulative basis. So the point is, if you have not had a significant issue or failure, consider yourself lucky, and sooner or later you may have some issues to deal with. So this leads to my next question of where did the most recent failure occur? Now recall that 14% said that they didn't have any failure whatsoever. 20% said that their failure occurred at the dock, ramp, or marina. So if you're going to have a failure, this is a good place to have it, so rather than getting stranded on the water. 2/3 of boaters in my survey, on the other hand, mentioned that their failure did occur while they were on the water. And so I asked a follow-up question: were you able to return to the dock, ramp, or marina? And about half of those people with an on-water failure were able to return, and half were not. Another way of saying this is 34% of all boaters in our survey had an on-water failure and were unable to return to the dock. In other words, they were left stranded. So this is, as you can see, this is a common problem and can be fairly serious, especially if you are on the ocean or a large body of water. So now let's take a look at some of the more common reasons for boat failures. So the number one reason for a boat failure by far is dead or weak battery. 27% of people who had a recent failure said that was the cause. And this is especially common these days with fishing boats that are now running a lot of different electronics. And this is exactly what happened to Burl J. from Florida, as he shared in his story. I was fishing a bass tournament and my cranking battery failed when I was going to head back to the weigh-in. I had a good bag of fish in the live well and ran my recirculator all day. I also forgot to turn off my 2 graphs and didn't crank the big motor all day. I called a friend of mine who was fishing the tournament also. He ran the 15 miles back up the river and jumped me off. I made it back to weigh in with about 5 minutes to spare. I won the tournament. Now I keep a jump box in my boat all the time. I also turned off all electronics I am not using, and I installed a second cranking battery. Again, that's from Burl J in Florida. So thanks, Burl, for sharing your story, and I'm glad it had a happy ending. And I hope that your friend at least got a piece of the winnings or got a case of beer for his heroics. So one of the things to know about this failure of a dead or weak battery, even though it's the most common, it's also probably the easiest failure to address. That is, if you have something like this. This is a portable jump starter, which is what Burl said he now carries aboard his boat, and I carry on mine. With this, all you need to do is attach these clamps to your battery terminals, push this power button here, and then start your engine, and you should be good to go, even with a very dead battery. And the nice thing about this is you can use it in your car or truck as well. So that way, you should never get stranded again, either on the water or on the road because of a dead battery. And that's why I recommend that every boater should have one of these. And I will leave a link to this in the video description because it's, again, something that I encourage all boaters to own. Now let's take a look at the second most common reason for boat failure, and that is bad gasoline. So 8% said that was the reason for their most recent failure. You can see this is a big drop off from the number one reason, which was 27%, and we're now down to 8% said that was bad gas. And in many cases, this is caused by water getting into your fuel tank, as was noted by Randy L. from Wisconsin. Lost engine 5 miles offshore Lake Superior. Water and gunk and fuel. Had to completely drain tank, which was 120 gallons. Lots of slimy gunk came out with the fuel. Not sure what that was. I never used ethanol blended gas. Again, that's from Randy L. in Wisconsin. Now, I'm not sure what happened in Randy's case, but this issue of bad gas has become a much bigger issue in recent years because of the prevalence of ethanol in gasoline. You see, your gas tank is vented, and so condensation can form due to the natural heating and cooling in the environment. Problem is, this condensation can cling to the ethanol molecules and then separate and settle to the bottom of your gas tank, which is what's referred to as phase separation. What then happens is that your engine may draw in that mostly water mixture, which may prevent your engine from starting and can do a lot of harm to your engine. So what can you do about this? Well, the first thing is to do what Randy did, even though it didn't fully help him in this case, which is to avoid ethanol gas if you can. But that's not easy to do because that ethanol is prevalent everywhere. The second thing you could do, and this is what I do, is I put in this fuel treatment every time I add gas to my boat. So this is a product from Stable. It's the blue stuff. It's the marine ethanol treatment and stabilizer. So this will keep your gas fresh, and it'll also help prevent that phase separation that I was referring to. I just put in a half ounce for every 5-gallon tank is what I do there. So if you do this can help you with that problem. And then the third thing to do, keep in mind, is especially if you're going to store your boat for a period of time and not use it for, say, a few weeks or several weeks, is that you should either drain your gas tank completely, which is not easy to do, or fill it all the way up, which is what I do. And the reason why you want to do that is you don't want to leave room for condensation to form. So that's a third thing that you can do as well to help prevent an issue due to bad gas. The third most common reason for boat failure is a bad electrical connection. Now, this can be caused by either a corroded battery connection or wires breaking or working loose, as was the case with Timothy B. from Michigan. Family was using boat on inland lake, stopped to fish, wanted to move to another spot. Motor would not start. Fault was a loose cable connection on starting battery. Got back to the ramp using trolling motor. Again, that's from Timothy B. in Michigan. All you can about do in this case to prevent this from prevent this from happening is to check your battery terminals periodically. Just make sure that they're clean, corrosion-free, and tight. And also carry along with you an adjustable wrench in case you ever need to tighten down your connections, because things will work loose, especially when you're bouncing around in rough water. And the next reason for failure is a tie, again, for number 3, which is fuel line or fuel filter obstruction. Again, at 7%. And this could be caused by a fuel filter getting clogged or your fuel line coming loose or getting pinched, as this harrowing story from Nick in North Dakota illustrates. It was 2011 when the floodgates opened on the Garrison Dam, backing up water on the upper Missouri River system in North Dakota. Downstream in Bismarck, we were warned to get all watercraft off the Missouri River system. As I left the dock, the water had come up 10 feet. I had to reach a marina about a mile upstream to load out. I got about halfway there and my boat quit. With the surge of water coming at me, I was being washed downstream to South Dakota. I was so scared. My last hope was to go back to the motor, and I see the gas line hose kinked. So lucky I was. These gas lines need to be constructed more rigid. Again, that's from Nick K in North Dakota. So yeah, definitely a very frightening experience. And as you can see, sometimes these failures can be a major safety issue, but I'm glad everything worked out in this case. So what can you do to potentially avoid this? Not easy, but the first thing you could do is to inspect your fuel lines periodically to make sure it's not cracked or leaking. Also, you should change your fuel filter and perhaps your water separator, if you have one, as part of your annual maintenance. And also, it's important to keep in mind that for a combustion engine to work, you need fuel, oxygen, and ignition. And so if your battery is cranking your engine, but your engine's not firing, one of the first things to check is your fuel line, which Nick eventually did here. Speaking of fuel, the fifth most common reason for failure is from a fuel pump. So here's a story from David S. in Pennsylvania. Got stuck on Lake Erie in Michigan as my fuel pump went out and had to be towed in by a fellow Metro West steelheader. Now, I had to look that up, but a Metro West steelheader is a fishing club in the Northeast. Unfortunately, replacing a fuel pump is fairly expensive, and there's not much you can do about it if it fails while you're on the water. So your best bet is to look for signs ahead of time that it may be failing, such as a hard starting engine, or your engine is sputtering when underway, which might indicate that your fuel pump is not delivering a consistent flow of fuel. Because obviously you'd be better off catching this problem on land rather than, out at sea, which is what happened to David here. And then the final reason for boat failure that I'm going to discuss is water intrusion into the engine block. 5% mentioned that as a reason for their most recent failure. This is something that's also known as hydrolock. And this is what happened to Tim B from Iowa. I had a 350 SLX, which I believe is a Sea Ray, with twin 350 Verados. I was out in the Gulf idle when my port engine started to sputter. I shut it down and could not get it to start up again. I limped to a marina on one engine. The marina told me that I had salt water in the engine. I had to have the power head replaced. Again, that's from Tim B in Iowa. Obviously a very serious and expensive issue, so sorry to hear about that. Now, sometimes this hydrolock or water in your cylinders can happen because of mechanical failure, such as a blown gasket, which might let cooling water into your cylinders. And so there's not a whole lot you can do about that. But it can also be caused by operator errors, such as backing your boat down rapidly on a steep boat ramp. So you'd see this little icon here. If you're backing your boat down too quickly on a steep ramp, you may actually submerge your engine, and so water could come in through your intake. And so that could cause that water ingestion. This can also happen if you are really rough seas and you back your boat down too quickly, or you throw it in reverse, causing water to come over the transom and potentially into your engine. So your best bet is to back your boat down slowly at the ramp and don't deaccelerate too quickly when you're on the water if you can avoid it. So here are the top 12 most common reasons for the recent failure. And we just covered these first 6 over here. So I'll just briefly mention these other items, but I won't spend much time with them. Ran out of fuel. Again, 4%. Alternator failure. So, by the way, the ran out of fuel, oftentimes that happens because of your fuel gauge was off or not working. Alternator failure will lead to an electronic failure. Your battery won't get recharged, and so you may get stranded that way. An impeller or water pump failure. So to kind of help some precautions you can take here is to always, if you have an outboard, look for a strong P stream. And it's also a good idea to change your impeller every, say, 2 to 3 years. Lower unit or gear case failure at 4%, faulty sensors, blown power head, which would be obviously a really, really bad day on the water. So those are the top 12 reasons for the most recent on-water failure, according to my survey. So the final thing I want to do is discuss what tools you should bring along in case you have a problem on the water. So in the survey, I asked boaters to assume they knew what the problem was and how to fix it. And what tools or materials would they have needed to fix the issue? And the most frequent answer that we received was that a portable jump starter would have solved their problem. And this is not surprising because, as you may recall, a dead or weak battery was the #1 reason for failure. So obviously having a portable jump starter would be, the best way to rectify that situation. After that, a number of people said that a wrench or socket set, screwdriver, and pliers, both regular and needle nose, would be helpful. Now you see some people also said jumper cables, but if you have this portable jump starter, you really won't need the jumper cables. So that's what would have been needed to fix the problem. Now you can see down here at the bottom, 36% said, hey, nothing would have helped, problem is too severe. So it didn't matter really what you were carrying on board in that case. So this is the tools that would have been helpful when the problem occurred. Now let's take a look at what boaters actually tend to carry with them. So now, this is the question I asked, what tools do you carry with you on board your boat? And only 26% mentioned that they carry a portable jump starter, so about 1 in 4. So this is, again, as I said beforehand, this is the one device that you can keep on your boat and avoid the most common reason for an on-water failure, is to carry a portable jump starter, and only 1 in 4 currently carry one. A lot more people carry an adjustable wrench or socket set. 90% carry screwdrivers, and a high percentage of people also carry pliers, both regular or needle nose. So these items with the red check marks are the minimum items that I believe you should carry on board your boat to help you should an issue arise. And that's, again, the portable jump starter, as I mentioned, an adjustable wrench and potentially or a set of sockets, screwdrivers, of course, and then a set of pliers. So those are the things that would be nice to carry with you.
Well, I hope you found this video to be helpful. If you did, do me a big favor and click on that like button to help me to produce more content like this. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel to get my latest tips to help you purchase, equip, and maintain your boat. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I will see you out on the water.